Welcome to Think Like a Parent. I'm Selene, and I'm here to challenge everything you think you know about raising kids. Not to shock you, but to show you what actually works. Today, we're talking about something that's going to make every well-meaning parent, teacher, and grandparent lose their minds, so buckle up. Your 4-year-old doesn't know their letters yet. Their friend is already reading simple books. Your mom keeps asking when you're going to work on reading. Pinterest is full of alphabet activities. And here's what I need you to do. Don't teach them. Don't drill flashcards. Don't sit down for letter time. Don't turn reading into a lesson. I know every achievement-oriented instinct you have is screaming at me right now, because what I'm about to show you is exactly what Finland does. The country with the highest literacy rates in the world, backed by 40 years of reading development research. And it produces kids who actually love reading instead of kids who can decode words but hate books. And it starts working the day you stop trying, maybe sooner. Once you understand why early reading instruction actually damages long-term literacy, you'll never look at those alphabet apps the same way again. Here's what you're doing right now. You try to teach letter sounds during breakfast, you point out letters on signs while driving, you buy the workbooks, download the apps, practice sight words on flashcards, you turn every book into a teaching moment. What letter is that? Sound it out, try again. And when they resist, you either worry they're falling behind or you push harder because kindergarten is coming. And it makes sense, right? Early is better. Head start equals advantage. If they can read by 5, they'll excel in school. That's what our culture screams at us. That's what every educational toy company tells us. Get them ready. Don't let them fall behind. But here's what actually happens. Step 1, you introduce reading as work, as something they need to learn, as a skill they're supposed to perform for you. Letters become a test instead of magic. Step 2, their brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, which handles executive function, isn't developmentally ready for abstract symbol decoding before age 6 or 7. They struggle, it feels hard, and their brain makes a crucial association. Reading is hard, reading is frustrating, reading makes mom anxious. Step 3, they learn to decode, maybe even early, but the joy's gone. By 3rd grade, they can read, but they don't. Because you taught them the skill before you built the love. If you've been drilling letters with your 3-year-old, if you've felt that panic when they're not progressing, you're not broken, you're not failing, you're responding to massive cultural pressure. You're doing what everyone told you a good parent does. Here's where Finland figured out something completely different. Picture this, a library in Helsinki, 5-year-old boy sitting in his mother's lap. Picture book open. The mother is reading, not pointing at words, not asking questions, just reading. Her voice is animated. She does the character voices. She pauses at the exciting parts. The boy is transfixed, eyes wide. He interrupts. Why did the fox do that? She closes the book partway. They talk about it. They wonder together. She opens it again, keeps reading. No one mentions letters. No one says, sound it out. 15 minutes later, the book closes. The boy immediately reaches for another. Again, she asks. He nods. They read 3 more. Not once did anyone try to teach him anything, but something profound just happened. He learned that books are portals, that stories are magic, that reading is the key to wonder. At 7, when his brain is developmentally ready, he'll learn to decode in 6 months. And he'll read voraciously for the rest of his life. It's like watching someone fall in love before they learn the technical definition of the word. Finnish educators don't rush to teach reading. They marinate children in story first, because they understand something about how literacy actually develops. When you read to a child, just read, without turning it into a lesson. You're building narrative comprehension, vocabulary, story structure, phonemic awareness, and most crucially, desire. Their brain is learning what reading is for, not how to do it, why to do it. This is called building intrinsic reading motivation. It's not about mechanics, it's about meaning first, mechanics second. Reading to them is faster than teaching them to read. I'm going to call this the Story Immersion Method. It's called immersion, because you're not teaching them to swim by explaining strokes on the pool deck. You're putting them in the water of stories until they can't imagine life without it. I need to warn you, this will feel irresponsible. Every step will feel like you're doing nothing while other kids pull ahead, like you're lazy, like you're setting them up for failure. That's exactly why most parents never discover how this creates kids who read 400 books a year by age 10. I'm going to show you 5 simple steps, nothing academic, nothing that looks like school, just building readers through story immersion. Step 1, abandon teaching mode. Starting today, right now, you stop treating books as educational tools. You stop pointing at letters. You stop asking, what letter is that? You stop trying to work on reading. Every time you open a book with your child, your only job is to read it. Out loud, with expression, like a performance, like you're transporting them somewhere. When you do this, you remove the performance anxiety. Their brain stops bracing for a test. The amygdala, the threat detection center, stays quiet. Instead, the brain's narrative processing network lights up. They sink into story. They start to associate books with pleasure, not pressure. This is building what researchers call approach motivation instead of avoidance motivation. 5 seconds in. Decision made. You're a storyteller now, not a teacher. Step 2. Read volume, not curriculum. Forget age-appropriate reading levels. Forget educational value. You read what captivates them. 3 books a day minimum. Picture books, chapter books you read aloud, poetry, comic books, nonfiction about dinosaurs or trucks or space, whatever makes their eyes light up, and you read the same book 40 times if they ask. Repetition isn't boring to them, it's mastery, it's comfort. It's how their brain absorbs language patterns. When you do this, you're building what linguists call linguistic reservoir. Every story adds vocabulary, sentence structures, narrative patterns. They're learning sophisticated language, metaphor, foreshadowing, character motivation, without anyone teaching it. Their brain is soaking in the architecture of written language. By the time they decode, they already understand how written language works. They just need to crack the code. 3 books a day, every day. That's 1,000 books a year. Step 3, never drill, only immerse. No flashcards, no letter of the week, no sound it out. If they ask about a letter, and they will naturally around 5 or 6, you answer, briefly. Then you go back to the story. You don't create curriculum. You respond to curiosity. You're not teaching reading. You're living in a text-rich environment where reading is as natural as breathing. When you do this, their brain learns reading as discovery, not duty. The dopamine system, the brain's reward center, fires when they figure something out themselves. Hey, that's a B, like in my name. That's intrinsic learning. That's neurological gold. Forced drilling activates stress response. Self-discovery activates reward response. One creates readers, one creates decoders who don't read. Let curiosity lead, not curriculum. Here's what this looks like in real life. Without the story immersion method, your 4-year-old alphabet app on the iPad. Trace the letter A. A says, ah, good job. Now B. They comply. They learn letters. At 5, they can decode cat and dog. At 6, they read at grade level. At 8, they never pick up a book unless assigned. Reading feels like work, because it always was work. With the story immersion method, same 4-year-old, you read 3 books every night, chapter books at breakfast, library trips on Saturdays. They memorize favorite books. They read to stuffed animals, reciting from memory, that's pre-reading. At 7, when school teaches phonics, they crack the code in 3 months. At 8, they read under the covers with a flashlight. At 10, you have to negotiate over how late they can stay up reading. Because reading was never work, it was always magic. That's the difference. Step 4, model reading obsession. They need to see you read, not on screens, actual books, magazines, newspapers. They need to hear you say, hold on, I'm at an exciting part. They need to watch you choose reading over TV. You talk about what you're reading. You read to yourself the way they should see reading, as chosen, not assigned, as escape, not obligation. When you do this, you're building identity-level modeling. Their brain's mirror neuron system watches you. This is what readers do. This is what reading is for. My parent is a reader. I'm becoming a reader. It's not about what you say, it's about who you are. They don't become what you teach. They become what you are. Be what you want them to become. Step 5. Wait for 7. Unless they ask to learn, genuinely ask, not hint because they feel pressure, you wait until age 6 or 7 to do any formal phonics instruction. You trust their brain's developmental timeline. You trust that the 1,000 books you've read have built the foundation. And when they're ready, they'll learn to decode in months, not years. And they'll have something most early readers don't. They'll know why reading matters. When you do this, you're honoring neurodevelopment. The prefrontal cortex matures at different rates. Some kids are ready at 5, most aren't ready until 6 or 7. Pushing before readiness creates struggle. Waiting for readiness creates ease. You're not delaying reading, you're building readers. There's a difference. Trust the timeline, resist the culture. Here's what just happened over these 5 years. You abandoned teaching mode. Their brain associated books with joy, not judgment. You read 1,000 books. They absorbed vocabulary, syntax, story structure, and motivation without a single worksheet. You never drilled. They learned reading was discovery, not duty. You modeled reader identity. They didn't just learn to read, they became readers. You waited for developmental readiness. When they learned phonics at 6 or 7, it was easy, not agonizing. You didn't just create someone who can read, you created someone who does read, who chooses reading, who finds themselves in stories. But here's what matters most. You're not just getting them to grade level literacy by 3rd grade, you're building lifelong reading identity. Finnish kids don't just test highest in literacy at 15, they're still reading for pleasure at 35. Not because they learned early, because they learned why. Over 5 years, sometimes less, sometimes more, the child who was immersed in story becomes the teenager reading complex novels for fun. Not because you taught harder, because you trusted story first, skills second. Day 1, you stop drilling. Read 3 books just for the joy of it. It feels weird. You'll wonder if you should be doing more. You're not. You're doing exactly what matters. Week 3, they start requesting the same books over and over. That's not boredom. That's mastery. Their brain is absorbing linguistic patterns through repetition. Year 2, they start reading to you, reciting memorized books, making up stories from pictures. This is emergent literacy. They're practicing reading before they can decode. Age 7, you introduce phonics or school does. They learn in 6 months what early readers took 3 years to struggle through. By age 9, they read independently, voraciously, by choice. Not because you pushed early, because you built love first. Let me tell you what this looks like 10 years from now. Your child, now 14, stays up until midnight finishing a novel. On a school night, you knock on the door. Lights out. They look up, dazed. Just one more chapter. You recognize that look? It's the same look they had at 5 when you'd close the book after 3 stories. That hunger for what happens next. Their English teacher pulls you aside at conferences. I don't know what you did, but they're the only kid in class who reads outside of assignments. Their literary analysis is college level. You smile, because you know for 10 years every night you read. You didn't teach, you didn't drill, you didn't panic when they weren't ready at 5. You trusted story, you trusted timeline, you trusted that meaning creates motivation. Now they're not just literate, they're a reader, that's their identity, and that changes everything. So here's your challenge. Starting tonight, before bed, try something radical. Put away the letter apps, hide the flashcards, forget their friend who's reading already, pick up a book, just one, and read it to them, with voices, with wonder, with zero educational agenda, just the story, just the magic. Watch what happens when reading stops being a lesson and becomes a gift. Remember that 4-year-old from the beginning? The one who didn't know letters yet? The one you were worried about? With the Story Immersion Method, they're still 4. They still don't know letters, but they know that books hold adventures, that stories answer questions. That reading is how you find out what happens next. And when their brain is ready, at 6, at 7, they'll learn to decode in months, and they'll read everything. Not because you taught them early, because you taught them why reading matters before you taught them how reading works, and that changes everything. One more thing before you go. If this resonated with you, if something inside you exhaled and thought, yes, I can stop the pressure, then this channel is for you. Because every single week, I'm bringing you more of these. More counterintuitive parenting truths that challenge the culture but honor the child. More neuroscience-backed methods that feel like doing less but accomplish more. More permission to trust yourself and your kid's timeline instead of everyone else's anxiety. So hit that subscribe button, not just to get notified, but to join a community of parents who are choosing depth over speed, connection over achievement, and kids who thrive instead of just comply. Because parenting doesn't have to be this hard, it doesn't have to be this anxious, but you need someone in your corner who's going to tell you the truth instead of what everyone else is doing. I'm here, every week, challenging the noise, showing you what actually works. You don't have to do this alone. Subscribe